Because what you've got to understand is around this time of year when 1122 King Road became ground zero for this crime, it was freezing. It was absolutely freezing.
And doing everything they can, including talking to neighbors. I talked to some neighbors who live nearby here too, John, a few hours ago. They told me something that was pretty interesting. We've been talking about that backsliding door so much, but the front door, I'm told by a neighbor who walked by that morning, who was coming back to his apartment, was wide open around 8:39 a.m. He told me that he gave that information to investigators, but we hadn't heard too much about that front door. And around 8:30 and 9 a.m. would have been a pretty good amount of time before police ever got the call that those students were dead inside. John.
But look, what am I talking about? I spoke about this a long time ago. So this isn't new to the channel. This isn't something that we've never discussed before. We have actually discussed it way back when. And it was regarding the front door of 1122 King Road. And this was one of the last things that I saw Get a Clue had mentioned as well. I was talking about the fact that this door had been reported to have been left wide open. And I put on the thumbnail that you may not like this, do you know what I mean? You might, it'll upset people because some people will be like, oh, you're just recycling stuff. But a lot of people were unaware that this was a thing. A lot of people were actually completely unaware that it was reported that the front door was open. But amongst the conversation that was being had around 1122 King Road and the front door being left open, now it would appear that James Fry had addressed this, saying that he had only potentially recently found that that was a thing. I don't know how true that is, I must say, but it was something that was being, there was a conversation about. But what is the importance of this? And I think it's important to understand that there is huge importance in whether that front door was open or not. Now, I'd like you to let me know down below if you've heard about the front door potentially being open. If you have, if you can remember exactly where that originally was reported. Again, we have covered on it. It's been so long, I can't remember where that information originally come from. So I'm not 100% sure on the validity of it. But it's a very, very important piece of information if that door was open. Apparently, it was a neighbor who had reported it, but I don't know who reported on the neighbor reporting it, if that makes sense. Because what you've got to understand is around this time of year when 1122 King Road became ground zero for this crime, it was freezing. It was absolutely freezing.
But the front door, I'm told, was wide open around 8:39 a.m.
So this article was originally reported on from Fox 13 out of Seattle. It's entitled, Idaho Murders, Slain University Students, Neighbor Says Front Door Was Left Wide Open After Attacks. I'm just going to read to you from this. Moscow, Idaho. A neighbor of the four slain University of Idaho students whose shocking stabbing deaths remain unsolved nearly 4 weeks after later claimed that they saw the front door wide open hours after the stabbing. The neighbor told Fox News this week that the front door, which opens to the level where the two other roommates were unharmed, was wide open around 8:30 a.m. on November 13th. Police say that they believe the stabbings happened between 3 and 4 that same morning when the victims were sleeping and as Moscow police officers were responding to an unrelated incident about 100 yards away. A 911 call about a possible unconscious person was made from the phone of one of the two surviving roommates around noon. Authorities have kept mum about how they believe the killer entered and left the home. When asked the state about the front door when the police arrived, a spokesperson told Fox News Thursday, that type of information is part of the investigation and is not released.
But what we haven't known is what happened prior to the first responders arriving on the scene. And tonight I can tell you. You have heard that the 911 call was made from a surviving roommate's cell phone. But we can now tell you who it was who made that call. I'm not going to name the person, but it was Ethan's best friend who made the 911 call. And that's because it was Ethan's best friend who made the discovery of Xana and Ethan's bodies. And that is a very tragic and sad detail to report. Up until now, it had been an assumption that there was maybe an unconscious person because it was a guess, that there was someone behind the door who wasn't answering a bedroom door. Now we can tell you that it was Ethan's best friend who had been called over that morning and made the discovery and took Ethan's pulse. Also called out to get 911 on the phone. It is more than likely that the phone that was used to call 911 was surviving roommate Dylan Mortenson's cell phone. You have probably heard up until now that it was an unconscious person that the dispatch said over the radio, but that's not unusual because when there's confusion, it's standard protocol, according to an article that came out recently in Airmail. Standard protocol, if there's confusion, just to skip the necessities of getting clarity and just dispatch the first responders for an unconscious person, regardless of what the actual situation is. So for anyone getting caught up on an unconscious person, probably not a good idea, given the fact that that's just sort of a standard description for get moving. We need people on the location. Again, this is multiple sources tonight with knowledge of the investigation telling us about who made the discovery of Ethan's body and then, of course, of Xana's body. What I can tell you is who made the discovery of Maddie and Kaylee on the third floor. I'm not sure if it was any of the other kids who were called over. What is interesting about this whole scenario that played out that morning was that kids came over to the home and then 911 was called. So who knows if there was any knowledge of the carnage that had taken place in that home before the kids came over. I mean, it's college, right? It's Sunday morning after a fun Saturday night. And maybe, just maybe, kids were coming over to, get together and go out for a Sunday brunch. But some kids who are unidentified at this time went over to the house that morning, and it was Ethan's best friend who made that discovery and took Ethan's pulse and yelled for them to call 911 and ultimately got on the phone on Dylan Mortenson's phone and talked to the 911 operators.
It was freezing. It was absolutely freezing. And that would have impacted the atmospherics within 1122 King Road. So in terms of time of death, so on and so forth, that could have played a massive part in throwing that off. We're not 100% sure, but it would have done. Now, we know that originally Kathy Mabbutt would have come out and she had made it seem, or she alluded to the fact that this crime had happened earlier. It had been potentially between 2 and 3. Then it was 3 and 4. But then we're hearing Ethan Chapin's mum, who had spoken about, or it's been said that she's spoken about. I'm not going to say she has spoken about because I haven't heard her physically say it out of her own mouth. But it's been said that she had made note of the fact that 2 a.m. was a dark time, or will always remain a dark time for her.
People can support you guys right now.
It's an interesting situation because in all of your hardships in life, whatever you're going through, there's always an outcome, you get through it, right? Like, I don't know, whatever it is. This is something you wake up and you realize it's never going to go away. And it's very different. It's a very different. 2 a.m. is a dark hour, I can tell you that. We're all.
And I guess just during this time, like I said, you guys seem very tight-knit. Are you just...
It's been said that she had made note of the fact that 2 a.m. was a dark time, or will always remain a dark time for her, which would have gone sort of hand in hand with Kathy Mabbutt originally reporting an earlier potential time of death, or time of when this attack happened. But the front door, because what you've got to think is, did someone go in the front door? Because you've got to think there was a DoorDash delivery. So did the DoorDash delivery go to the front door? Did the person enter in the front door? behind the DoorDash or after the DoorDash left. That's always been something that I've struggled with, and I'm sure that's exacerbated some of the feelings towards whether people were being helped in this, given information, or had just done recce on the property and knew that that door was forever open. Who knows? But I'd like to hear your thoughts on this situation and what you think. Was that door left open? And if it was indeed left open, what effect does that have on the case?
We were playing a game called Two Truths and a Lie.
Look at this nonsense. This, person states, quote, has been debunked. No, it is you that has been debunked. Your channel has no content. You joined like 6 or 7 months ago. Your troll channel has been debunked. A conspirator, perhaps even an FBI agent posing as a troll who many would overlook. You stick out like a sore thumb, though, so you'll always get ran over by the 18-wheeler. Yeah, see, we have the luxury of exposing numbskulls and keeping ourselves focused on our investigations at the same time. Be our guest. We'll just expose conspirators in the case and also in the comment threads. Makes things a bit more complete, in a way.
Four, almost as though they're walking in single file out at night at 3 o'clock in the morning, actually closer to 3:12 in the morning. And as you watch those 4 figures, remember, police say the murders happened between 3 and 4 in the morning. Did those people see something? Who are they? Have police tracked them down, asked them any questions, ruled them out? And again, if they're ruled out, did they see something as they were on foot, walking just steps away from where the murders happened? We do not have the answers to this, any of it. But as usual, our senior national correspondent, Bryan Enton, is live on the case. And tonight he is standing in that exact location, right where that body cam action took place. So Bryan, for us looking at it on television, it's hard to get the exact perspective of where the officers were standing, what direction their body cams were pointing, and where those 4 mysterious figures were walking from and to, and how far away they were from the actual murder scene. So can you take me there and help us get a feel?
Yeah, it's very confusing when you're looking at the body camera video. So hopefully we can give you some perspective. This is Band Field. This is where the alcohol call came in. The young men were here in the field when the police first showed up. That is the Sigma Chi fraternity house right there. So the police walked those young men across the street. This is Taylor Avenue, right to this spot right here. I was able to identify it because of the fire extinguisher. And they were standing in this spot, the young men, and the body camera video was pointed this way. And it is over my shoulder where you could see very faintly what looked like several people walking faster, almost running by in the background. And I want to walk you over, Ashley, and give you a little more perspective. It was somewhere in this area right here. And we can tell because we analyzed these lights of this little apartment building. It was somewhere right in this area. There's another big apartment building here. The question you might be having is, how close is this to the house where the murders happened? Mo is going to point in that direction. Our producer is up there. She's going to flash a flashlight, Ashley. You see that flashlight flashing right there? That is right in front of the house where the murders happened. So it's all very, very close.
So what we're effectively seeing is, like, if my eyes don't deceive me, about 200 yards away from where Mo is flashing the light at the murder scene, those 4 figures were walking where you're standing. It's that close.
It's that close, and it appears, again, it's so hard to see it in that body camera video, but when we zoom in, it does appear that the figures are walking / running from the direction of where the house is where the murders happened. At first, I thought they were just walking down Taylor Avenue, but when I got out here and really looked at everything, it appears they might actually be coming somewhere from the direction of the house.
And then just point to what direction they're headed. From what I'm looking at you straight on, just point the direction they were headed.
Okay, let me show you again. So up there on the hill, that's where the flashlight is flashing. That is where the house is, where the murders happened. It appears they were coming from that direction, and that they were going this way, back towards Bandfield, back towards the Simcoe house where the police were.
And it's sometimes, I just want to make sure our audience is clear. It sure sounds like you're saying Banfield, like the name of this show, or my last name. It is B-A-N-D, as though it's a school band, and that is their field. It is the school band's field. So, but what I'm really curious is when you showed me Mo or Lauren flashing the light up at the murder scene, it looked like that's the walkway that you have shown us that leads down from the house. So is it feasible that those 4 people were coming down that walkway?
It's possible. And you know, I can't tell for sure. It's impossible to know for sure. Were they coming from that direction? Were they sort of walking along Taylor Avenue and it just appeared they were walking that way? We don't know. I can tell you from being out here for weeks, especially when there were more students here, this is a very busy area. You've got the frat and sorority houses. You've got a ton of apartments right here. So, you know, it doesn't mean that they're involved. I mean, and even at 3 a.m., I mean, there was the drunk kids in the field. There's all sorts of partiers walking around. I mean, you know, the likelihood is these were just some college students walking around in this area. But what do they know? Did they see something?
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.